Welcome to the Art of Power. I am Niccolo Machiavelli, and if you are here, it is because you hunger for something most men fear, understanding human nature without illusion. Today's conversation is not about virtue or politeness. It is about control of the self, of perception, and of others. Truly intelligent men, the ones who rise above the masses, share a secret. It is not brilliance. It is not charm. It is not even knowledge. It is restraint. They understand that silence is a weapon, and words, once spoken, cannot be recalled. So today, I will reveal 7 things wise and powerful men never say. Not because they are saints, but because they understand what I learned long ago. Power belongs not to those who speak, but to those who observe, interpret, and strike at the right moment. 1. I already know that. Fools rush to declare what they know. The wise remain still, watching, absorbing, pretending ignorance when necessary. The phrase, "I already know that," is the language of arrogance. It ends the conversation, kills curiosity, and exposes insecurity. In Florence, I once served men who believed they knew everything. They spoke often, and they listened little. And they fell, every one of them, because their certainty blinded them to change. The intelligent man understands that to learn is to gather power. To stop learning is to die, not by blade or poison, but by stagnation. When you interrupt another to say, "I know that already," what you're truly saying is, "I have nothing left to gain." And a man who can no longer gain is a man whose fate is already written. In politics, I learned that pretending ignorance often draws out the truth. When a rival believes you do not know, he reveals himself completely. So, even when you do know, act as if you don't. Let them speak. Let them expose themselves. Foreknowledge gained in silence is worth more than reputation gained through speech. Remember this. Powerful men learn twice, once by listening and again by pretending not to know. 2. That's impossible. Every time a man utters these words, he confesses his own weakness. Impossible is not a description of reality. It is an admission of fear. I have seen leaders crumble before challenges that required not genius, but endurance. They hid their cowardice behind logic, saying, "It cannot be done." But those who truly hold power understand that impossibility is a mask, one placed by those too timid to attempt what others will not. When I wrote The Prince, I did not write for the timid. I wrote for those who dare to bend chaos into order. The man who says impossible surrenders before the battle begins. But the man of will says, "It will be done, and I will decide how." Seneca, a Roman philosopher I admired, once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This is true. Men build prisons in their minds and call them truth. They fear failure, judgment, and risk, and then call their fear reason. Remember this. The obstacle is rarely the world. It is you. When others say it cannot be done, smile. That phrase is a map. It shows you exactly where to attack, where complacency has weakened their will. The impossible is only a task waiting for someone ruthless enough to attempt it. 3. That's not my fault. This sentence is poison to strength. To say it's not my fault is to say, I am powerless. It is a declaration that your fate lies in the hands of others. The powerful man never speaks these words. Even when the fault is not his, he accepts it because responsibility is leverage. When you take ownership of a problem, you gain control over its outcome. And control, my friend, is the essence of dominance. I once served princes who blamed everyone but themselves, their advisors, their armies, even fortune itself. They lost their kingdoms. The one who endured, the one history remembers, was the prince who said, "I accept what is mine to control." Understand this truth. Blame is for the powerless. Responsibility is for those who intend to rule. The Stoics would agree, though I wore a darker cloak than theirs. It is not what happens to you that matters, but how you use it. The wise man uses every misfortune as a lesson, every defeat as a weapon sharpened for tomorrow. So never say, "That's not my fault." Say instead, "It is mine now, and I will decide what to do with it." That is how leaders are forged, not in comfort, but in ownership. 4. I don't need any help. This too is pride disguised as strength. The man who says, "I need no one," has already limited his reach. In politics, isolation is death. A ruler without allies is a corpse waiting for burial. Do not mistake independence for wisdom. The strongest rulers, the most feared men, always understood the power of others. Caesar had his generals. Alexander had his philosophers. Even I, Machiavelli, served under men far greater than myself to learn what they could not teach willingly. The weak man hides behind solitude because it protects his ego. The powerful man seeks alliance because he knows influence multiplies when shared wisely. But beware, never ask for help as the weak do, with desperation. Ask strategically, with precision, and always in a way that lets the other believe they benefit as much as you. Make them want to assist you, so that their pride becomes your servant. Remember, asking for help is not submission. It is manipulation when done with skill. The king who asks his counsel for counsel appears humble, but in truth, he collects loyalty. He makes others believe they matter, and men who believe they matter will die to protect you. 5. I'm too old for that. The great excuse of those who have lost their hunger. Age is no enemy to ambition. Only comfort is. The phrase, "I'm too old for that," is not a fact. It is a surrender, the quiet death of curiosity and courage. I met men in their 50s who built empires, and boys of 20 who were already corpses in spirit. Time does not decide who is finished, the will does. In my later years, I saw what most never see. That power favors the adaptable, not the youthful. The young are bold, yes, but the old have precision. They understand the value of patience, of timing, of knowing exactly when to strike. The Stoics taught acceptance of fate. But I tell you this, the prince must accept fate only long enough to twist it in his favor. If you breathe, you still have moves left on the board. And as long as there are moves, you are not finished. So when you hear the voice whisper, "You are too old," answer with this: "Then I have nothing left to lose and everything left to prove." That is the most dangerous man alive. 6. I'll do it later. There are few lies more seductive. "I'll do it later" has buried more men than war or famine. It whispers comfort and then robs you of your future. Understand this. Time is not loyal. It will not wait for you to be ready. It will not reward your hesitation. Every second you delay, someone else is acting, and they are building the power you will one day envy. In my youth, I delayed. I thought opportunity would return. It never did. History does not wait for those who plan. It remembers those who move. The Stoics say, "Memento mori," remember you will die. I say, remember that while you live, the world owes you nothing. Action is the only currency that fate respects. Do it now, not because it guarantees success, but because hesitation guarantees regret. The man who acts now commands tomorrow. The man who waits becomes another forgotten story whispered in the halls of what could have been. 7. That's just how I am. And now, the final confession of the week. The phrase, "that's just how I am," is the tombstone of self-mastery. It is how men justify mediocrity, how they make peace with their own chains. The powerful never define themselves by their flaws. They mold themselves again and again into whatever the moment demands. A lion can be gentle to his cubs and merciless to his prey. This is not contradiction, it is control. When man says, "That's just how I am," he is saying, "I refuse to evolve." But the prince, the strategist, the conqueror, he changes as the world changes. He adapts his mask, alters his tone, reshapes his identity when it serves him. Do not mistake consistency for virtue. The world belongs to the adaptable. Power belongs to the man who can transform himself at will. Even in exile, I remained Machiavelli, not by name but by thought, because power begins not with crowns, but with clarity. The man who rules himself, his mind, his impulses, his story, rules all else. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "That's just how I am," remember, that is not the truth. That is fear wearing the mask of honesty. Change is not betrayal. It is evolution. And the man who evolves is the man who survives. These are the 7 phrases the intelligent and powerful never say. Not because they are beyond them, but because they have learned the cost. Powerful men listen more than they speak. They act more than they promise. And they adapt more than they defend. If this conversation awakens something in you, the hunger to rise, the courage to see truth without comfort, then remember, wisdom unspoken dies in silence. Share it. Pass it on. For power grows not in isolation, but in influence. And if you are wise, you will stay, because what comes next will not just teach you how to think like a ruler. It will teach you how to become one.